revolves around upgrading our Advantech 510 computers. But you kind of follow the same steps when you're upgrading just some of the older agencies' XP computers. Even if they don't have a RAID, you can follow this document and it will help you out. So go ahead and open it here. First thing you want to do before you format the computer and install Windows 7 is you need to back up the database, whether it's drdas Ultimate or drdas FW. Create a copy of the database. And let me see if I can just show you guys how to do that here. So to create a database backup, you'll open up the SQL Management Studio. And then you'll log in. The password is typically drdas FW and let your IT change it. You'll expand databases. Typically, drdas Ultimate, the database is drdas config, and drdas FW is just called drdas FW. If you want to create a backup of it, you just right-click it, go to Tasks, and then click Backup. And you can change the location where the backup is going to be stored. Here we have CDB backups drdas FW. We'll just go and click OK. These default settings are fine. Okay, that folder no longer exists, so we got to create it. So we see a progress bar over here, not a bar, but we see the percentage going up, showing us that the backup is taking place.
Andy, this is Anna up in Alaska. Is there a way we could make this larger on the screen?
Is that better?
Thank you. Yes.
So now if we go to CDB backups, we'll see a backup of the drdas FW database. Again, it's the same process for drdas Ultimate to back up the database. In this .back file, this contains all your configuration and all your data. So once you have this backup, you need to save it to either a jump drive or put them on the network somewhere where you know you have it. In drdas Ultimate, if you don't want to carry all the data to the new computer, you can just run, I don't think I actually have drdas Ultimate installed here, but you can export the XML file, and it talks about that in the document here. And with the XML file, it just stores all your configuration, all your time bases, the instruments that you have configured, but you won't actually have all the data. With drdas FW, you also want to grab a copy of the calib.dat file and the config.dat file. In Windows XP, it would be in C program files and drdas FW. So in drdas FW, this is where your configuration is stored. So you'll want to make a copy of these and put them on a thumb drive as well. And then what you would want to do is you could go ahead and start upgrading to Windows 7. Of course, after you grab anything else off the computer that you would want, any files, reports that you have saved, because once you upgrade, you remove everything from the drive, and there's no way to recover it. So you want to make sure you have everything before you do upgrade. It'd be good to also know.
Again?
I'm sorry.
Is it okay if I? Can I ask a quick question before you move on?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the config and the .dat files are different than that backup file. How? Or how are they different?
They're
Do you
different.
Need both?
Yes, you need both for drdas FW because it's DB6. And drdas Ultimate, if you only backed up just the database stores the configuration as well. That's not the case with drdas FW. Your configuration is stored in these two files.
Separate from the database backup.
Yeah, the database backup drdas FW just contains the tables and all your data.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So once you have backed up all those files, you can go through this tech note here, and it will go through the steps for upgrading to Windows 7. Let's scroll down. I talked about this. Okay. So what you'll need to do first is you'll turn off the computer, and then when you turn it back on, you'll keep pressing the delete key. And what this will do is it will bring you into the BIOS. And then you need to turn on boot from CD. It's not turned on by default, and if you don't have that on, then you won't be able to boot to the Windows 7 disk. This talks about that in detail here, but we'll try to just skim through everything. Once that's turned on, what you'll do is you'll restart the computer and continuously press the enter key, which will boot to the Windows 7 disk. Once it boots to the Windows 7 disk, you'll have an option to choose load driver. You'll click that, and then it will start looking for a driver. What you do is you'll eject the Windows 7 disk. You'll put in the drdas disk that we supply, and then browse to the RAID driver folder. That will load the drivers, and then you'll put the Windows 7 disk back in. Once that's done, you'll follow the prompts on the screen, which this document covers very well. And then what it will do is it will go through and format the computer, which is it will remove everything from the drive, and it will put a fresh copy of Windows. And again, in this process, you'll need a Windows 7 product key. So before you start, you should purchase a copy of that. We recommend Windows 7 Professional. So once Windows 7 is installed, you'll go into the control panel and you'll open up the device manager. And you'll do this just to make sure that all the drivers have been installed. Typically, when you're connected to the internet, and it is recommended when you first upgrade to Windows 7 to have the computer connected to an internet source. What it will do is it will automatically go through and install any of the drivers. For example, video drivers, your LAN drivers, stuff like that. It will go through and install. And what you'll want to look for is make sure there's no exclamation marks here. And as long as you have it connected to the internet, there typically won't until we put in the Moxa card, or if the Moxa card is detected. So next we're talking about preparing to install Ultimate. The very first thing you'll want to do is turn off user account control. This is a requirement for running drdas software on Windows 7. So you need to go in the control panel and then user accounts and click change user account control settings. You want to make sure the slider is set to never notify. And you may require a restart after doing that. And then if you have one of our Advantech 5 pins, the next step would be to install the webcam software. And the webcam software just lets you see the status of the RAID, the mirroring of the two drives. And that installation is on the drdas DVD. So you would open the DVD and then go to the webcam folder, and then you would run the setup there. This document talks about the setup in detail. You'll want to turn the time update off. By default, the computer is set to go to timesync.windows.com and periodically check the time and then update it. We recommend that that's turned off. So this talks about how to do that. So you would just double click the clock here and go to change date and time settings, internet time, and then uncheck this here. Synchronization with the internet time server. So we'd turn that off. And then we would recommend going ahead and doing Windows updates and letting it install those. Typically that's going to take probably an hour to an hour and a half to complete that. And then once that's done, what you'll want to do is you'll want to turn off the automatic updates. So to do that, you'll go in the Start Control Panel, Windows Update, and click Change Settings over here. And click this Never Check for Updates. You can either use that or you can say check for updates, but let me choose whether to download and install them. We're just trying to make it so the computer is not restarting at 3 in the morning, installing updates. Because typically what it does is it will download a large chunk of updates, and then it will log out of the computer to install the updates, and it could take an hour. And the whole time that it's doing that, you're not logging data. So we say to set it for never check for updates, so you can decide when that happens. And I already talked about turning those off. Another thing you want to do is by default with Windows 7, it turns on hibernation, it turns on power saving mode, and it's a requirement that those are turned off. To do that, you would go into Start menu, Control Panel, and then you'll click Power Options. And you want to select this High Performance, and then you'll click Change Plan Settings. And then here it will say put the computer to sleep after an hour. You want to change that to never. You don't want the computer to go to sleep because you won't be logging data. So after we do that, we can click this Change Advanced Power Settings. Expand hard disk. Turn off hard disk after. Typically this is 20 minutes. We want to set it to 0 so it never turns off the hard disk. And then we want to expand sleep after. I'm going to change that to 0 as well. Allow hybrid sleep, we want to turn that off. Hibernate after, we're going to change that to 0 for never. and then expand this USB settings, USB selective suspend settings. We want to turn that off. We don't want it to turn off the USB ports when we're not using them, because the hasp key runs on the USB ports, and if it turns them off, then the hasp key isn't available. So what we'll do is we'll click Apply there, and click OK, and then Save Changes. Okay, so the next thing that we would need to do is we would need to check the system architecture to find out if your computer is either 64-bit or 32-bit. And there is a file on the DVD called checkos.bat, and this talks about how to find that and how to run it. So once you run the file, it will either say it's x86, which means that it's a 32-bit operating system. If it says AMD 64, then it is a 64-bit operating system. And you'll need to know this for when you're installing SQL Server. So after you check that and you find out, hey, you're running a 64-bit operating system, you'll run the drdas DVD. The web page will come up. You'll click Install All Prereqs. And then for Windows 7, you'll just skip right down to step 10. And then it says if your system is architecture x86, click here. If it's x64, click here. So we're 64-bit, so we would click there. And then once you do that, this process takes at least a good 20 minutes. It kind of runs in the background. It installs SQL, and it does it with all of our default settings. It automatically sets the password to drdas exclamation point. But once that's done, you can begin attaching your old database that has all your data. Let me show you guys how to do that here. So to attach your old database, you would again open up the SQL Server Management Studio. You would log in. You would right-click Databases, and you would click Restore Database. And we're going to call it drdas FW new. So to find the database that we backed up, we're going to click From Device, and then click these three dots here. Then click Add. Then we're going to browse to see DB backups and with sfw.back. In your case, you would browse to an external drive or a network drive to find the backup. So then you'll tick this little box here that says Restored, and then you'll click OK. And we see that it's restoring the database here. Then we get this nice message that says SFW new completed successfully. And if we refresh, we should see our database. And there's our database that we attached there. So what we could do next is we would start, actually we won't start installing Ultimate yet. There's a couple more things we need to do here. We would install the Moxa drivers. So that's one of the things that's not installed by default, even when Windows 7 is connected to the internet, is the Moxa drivers. So to do that, you go into Start, Control Panel, Device Manager, and you would see the Moxa card. It's listed as PCI serial port under other devices. You would right-click that and go to Properties, and then Update Driver. And then you would click Browse My Computer for driver software. And it will put a default location in here, but it's not correct. So you'll click Browse, and you'll browse to the drdas DVD in the Programs folder and then in the Moxa folder. And then from there, you'll see two options, either Windows 7 64-bit or Windows 7 32-bit. So if you're 64-bit, just click the x64 folder. If you're 32-bit, click folder, click OK. Once you do that, click Next, and you'll be notified that the Moxa card driver was installed successfully. If it doesn't install the driver for each port right away, you may have to go through each port that shows up, click Properties, Update Driver. You'll need to browse to My Computer for driver software, and then the path should already be there. You should just have to click Next, and then it will add each port. The next thing you want to do is set Windows to auto login. What this does is when Windows restarts, it will automatically log in with the username and password that you provide. So to do this, you would click the Start menu, type in Run, and it will pop up here. Click Run, and it will bring up the little dialog box. Type in Control User Passwords 2. Press Enter. So you select the username that you want to auto log in this case, Randy. Right now it says users must enter a username and password to use this computer. We're going to uncheck that and click Apply. So it will pop up a box asking for the username or the user's password. In this case, we'll just type in drdas, OK, and then OK. So now what will happen is if I restarted my computer, it wouldn't prompt me for a username and password. It would just log in and take me directly to my desktop. And that's what we want the logger to do. So the next step would be to install drdas Ultimate. With drdas Ultimate, there's nothing unusual you have to do really to install. The only thing that we require is that you install removing the program files directory. And I'll just go over that really quick here. So when you run the installation, it will try to install into C program files x86 drdas Ultimate. We want you to remove the program files x86. So if we install into there, then we'll have problems with write permissions, and some things won't get saved. So we'll install to C drdas Ultimate. The same way with all software, whether it be Comm Center or drdas FW. And what you'll want to do is, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but you'll want to know which version of drdas FW or drdas Ultimate that you were previously running on the old computer. And when you first install drdas Ultimate on the new Windows 7 computer, just install that same version, point it to your database, and then upgrade it. And this, like I said, this document talks in detail. It talks about attaching the XML configuration. If you're not carrying over all your old data, you could just load the XML configuration. For drdas.w, once you install it and point it to the new database, you would copy your calib.dat and your config.dat into the drdas.w directory. So you would take them from whatever media you have them saved to, a USB drive or a network drive, and then you would install it and then place those two files in there. And when you open drdas.w, all your site settings should still be there. Is there any questions? Anyone? You guys are being quiet. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Looks like a good document to me.
Okay.
Up in Alaska.
If anyone needs this document, and if you're planning on upgrading to Windows 7, I ask that you first request the document so you can look over it and get a feel for it. And then once you're ready, we can send you out a drdas upgrade DVD. Keep in mind, this doesn't contain the Windows 7 installation. This just contains DRDAS's files, such as the installation files for Ultimate, Comm Center, any Vista software, drdas.w. But it also contains the RAID drivers that's needed to install Windows 7.
So I do have a question. This is Anna again. I'm sorry. I'm dominating on the questions. But Abel Vargas was working with you in June on this, and I think he got the CD and this. Could he have gotten the DVD and this document, or is it newer than that? Because we're actually trying to clone our old computers and upgrade them to Windows 7.
Okay, yeah, this particular document doesn't talk about the cloning.
Okay, well I have one that he wrote up that does, so, but I think this would be good sort of after the cloning is done. So I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay. I can send you this if you want it.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Have any questions? Okay. Well, that concludes the webinar. If you guys do have any questions, you can always email me, and I'll be glad to help you out. So thanks, and have a good day.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.